I ran into the worst person you can run into while you're with your affair. Then this happened. My heart is broken. My soul is lost. I have cried so much that my eyes are not capable of releasing any more water. Have you ever reached a turning point where your priorities shift and what once mattered to you no longer does? That breaking point where you stop caring about what people say about you? Stigmatization doesn't even matter to you anymore because you are broken and you will do everything you plan to do no matter what others say? If you have never been, then you should be grateful. I have just thrown everything I have built in my marriage down the drain, and I don't think I care anymore. I'm Alexandra, a 32-year-old marketing executive living in Los Angeles. My life seems perfect. A beautiful home, a successful career, and a loving husband. For private reasons I will not disclose but change his name, Ethan. We met in college, bonding over our shared love of art and music. After a whirlwind romance, we got married 5 years ago. Ethan, now 35, is a finance manager, and believe me when I say this man is so charming and handsome. He swept me off my feet with his kind heart and sense of humor. We were each other's rock, supporting every dream and aspiration. Well, you all might be wondering, despite the fact that the two of us had such a good background romance, why we had a falling out. I will please implore you not to point fingers at me as I tell you my troubles here on Reddit. I just need advice from you all. Ethan and I had our first fight 3 years after our marriage. Well, we had several small arguments before then, but this one was so fatal that I even broke our TV in anger. What happened on that day was that I had seen him at a mall with a strange woman who had a kid strapped on her back. When I called him on the phone, he lied that he was at the office. I'm sure you understand how I felt. Someone I caught still lied straight to my face. We fought that night. He still denied that it was him I saw. I suspected he had a child outside his marriage. I wouldn't be surprised if he had an affair. His good looks made women hover around him, but I was fine if I didn't know about it. But a child? I wouldn't take that. I later came to realize that I was mistaken about him. It was his elder brother I came across. I found out when he came to visit us at home to settle the issue, and to be honest, the resemblance was uncanny, and that made me embarrassed. I didn't see him at our wedding because he was not in the States at that time. After my fight with him, everything about our marriage began to change. Ethan stopped dropping me at the office like he used to, and he stopped calling during the day to ask about my day. It was unusual of him, and I thought he was still angry. I apologized to him several times, but his usual response was that everything was fine. It was not fine. I knew it. Was it me breaking the TV or me hitting him on the face? It was something I didn't intentionally do. I got a better TV for us to make up, but he was not very bothered by it. He stopped sleeping with me likewise. I was a woman who craved the touch of her husband. Why then did he stop touching me? That was part of what led to my several fights with him. I fought with him when I found out that he hung out with his secretary most days, and I thought he was sleeping with her. That's why he stopped sleeping even on the same bed with me. I craved him a lot, and I wanted a child too. I wasn't sure if it was my first fight with him that changed him, or if there was something else I did that made him change. It couldn't have been the fact that I told him, during our fight, that he wasn't satisfying me in bed. Why would a couple of near-perfect marriage be lacking in their sexual life? When he wanted us to make love, he touched me in private places that made me turn jelly beneath him, and after a few strokes he gave me in sexual play of about 20 minutes, he was done. I was disgusted, but didn't take it up with him, even though I wanted more from him. Maybe me telling him that he was a weak sexual man was over the top, insulting to him, and probably hurt his ego. Over time, our connection began to fray. Ethan's long work hours and my own career demands left us little time for each other, and conversations felt forced. I felt like I was living with a roommate, not my soulmate. That's when I met Ryan, a colleague who became my confidant, and eventually my lover. Inwardly, I was tired of hearing my friends talk about their marriage, how their husband was their everything while mine was just there as a position, maybe. I didn't even take it up with him again after I found several used protections in his car on several occasions. I had said I wouldn't mind him having an affair if I was in the dark about it, but he was trying to make me know, a message to me that if I do not appreciate his sexual appeal, others were willing to. There was nothing I could do. I didn't see or catch him cheating, but I was sure he must have made out with his secretary. Don't blame me yet. If Ethan had been there for me, I wouldn't have confided in Ryan. I know I'm not perfect, and I've made my share of mistakes, but I feel like I've been drowning in a sea of despair, and I didn't know how to keep my head above water. Ethan's distance and lack of intimacy left me feeling isolated and unloved. Ryan, on the other hand, listened to me, supported me, and made me feel alive again. He was charming, witty, and understanding. We bonded over our shared love of art and music, just like Ethan and I once did, and I didn't care if he was 5 years younger than me and a junior of mine at work. I know it's no excuse for cheating, but I felt like I was dying inside, and Ryan was the breath of fresh air I needed. Our affair was passionate and all-consuming, but I knew it was wrong. The first time I made love to him was at the office when everyone was gone, save for us two. We talked and laughed, and when he inched closer, God knows I didn't want it. But I was starved enough and didn't decline his approach. When he held me passionately and kissed me, I couldn't help but shudder at his gentle touch. His touch reminded me of Ethan's, but to be honest, Ryan was good with handling women. I didn't protest when he pinned me on his desk and came between my laps. If only this man was Ethan. Our stolen moments were electrifying. When we made love, I still remembered him talking about how much he loved me and would do everything to have me to himself. The words made me lean closer to him and pull him deeper. Ethan should be the one here now. Maybe he was doing this too with his secretary. I still remembered one of the things he did that led to our other fights. He had come home with his secretary after work and led her into my kitchen to cook for him and feed him. I squirmed in the chair as he giggled and laughed with the sexy secretary. I wouldn't hide the fact she was beautiful. So this was the woman taking my husband away from me. As I thought about it that day, I realized I wanted revenge. That was the instinct that pulled me toward Ryan. After that fateful day, Ryan and I began secretly meeting outside of work. We would go to his home or the hotel and make out. We'd steal glances at each other during meetings, and our conversations became laced with flirtation. I couldn't deny the excitement I felt whenever he was near. We'd meet for coffee, go on long walks, and explore the city together. For the first time in years, I felt alive. But with this newfound happiness came the weight of guilt. I knew I was still married, and the secrecy of our affair only added to the thrill. I convinced myself that I deserved this, that Ethan had neglected me for too long. Before you give your advice, Ethan had his bad sides too, aside from the ones I mentioned earlier. Did I forget to mention that I caught him at a motel with the same woman who had a kid I had mistaken to be with my husband, which led to our first fight? Yes, that woman. They were holding hands when I saw them. When he saw me, he just held her hand, his smile not leaving his face as he left with her. He didn't even act like he knew me, and I just kept trembling inwardly. I couldn't even book the room I had planned for me and Ryan. When he got home that day, I lashed out at him angrily, and he just ignored me like he did that afternoon. When I asked him if he had a child outside, he just told me to think whatever I wanted and shut the door to his room. His actions further pushed me to my lover. One night, as I was taking my bath, I heard Ethan enter my room, and I hurried my bathing. When I was done, I came out. He was drunk and my phone was in his hand. I took my phone from him, and a text from Ryan was on my phone. My heart skipped a beat as I read his words. "Can't stop thinking about you. Want to see you tomorrow?" Ethan, sensing my sudden tension, turned to me. His eyes were cold, and they stared daggers at me. I was scared, but I didn't want to show it on my face. When he asked me if I was okay, I nodded, trying to brush it off. But my hands trembled as I tried to delete the message. Ethan's eyes narrowed, and he reached for my phone. My heart sank as he read the text, his expression darkening. "Who is this?" he demanded, his voice low and menacing. I tried to come up with an excuse, but Ethan's eyes told me he knew. He knew everything. The room seemed to shrink, the air thickening with tension. I knew I'd been caught, and there was no going back. Ethan's face twisted in pain, and he threw the phone across the room. "How long?" he asked, his voice cracking with emotion. I knew I'd broken him, shattered the trust we once shared. And in that moment, I realized I'd lost everything that truly mattered. Somehow within me, I didn't care anymore. Ethan didn't matter anymore. Ryan was the only person that made me happy. Like I said earlier, I have just thrown everything I have built in my marriage down the drain. Ethan left home that night and didn't come home for some days. He didn't want to see me anymore because I disgusted him. When he came back, He took a few of his belongings and didn't come home again for the next week. I knew we were done. Totally done. But my relationship with Ryan still remained, and I was now bold enough to bring him to my matrimonial home, even on my husband's bed. I hate myself for doing that, but I still did it. It was totally on impulse, and Ryan had suggested it. I couldn't say no. I thought maybe I'd imagined the door opening or it was wariness. I just knew I was startled, and I saw Ethan standing by the door. He was furious and totally shattered. I didn't know what to do. I just shivered on the spot, and he left, never coming back. Or so I thought. The next time I saw him, he came back with the woman I saw him with at the motel. The child I saw with her was with her. I had just gotten home from my meeting with Ryan, who obviously I didn't stop seeing. The child was crawling in the room, and the woman was having a juice while my husband was holding a traveling bag. When I entered, he clashed his eyes with mine. It was void of emotion that I so much needed from him. I passed by him, and his smell halted my steps. I wanted to fall on my knees and plead with him because I still had feelings for him, but he was the one pushing me away. How did our relationship end up this way? I wondered. The only thing he said to me was that he would send a courier to deliver a divorce letter to me at the office, and I would need to sign to get it approved. Divorce was not on the top things I needed for us at that moment. For the first time in a month, the only thing my husband said to me was divorce. After he left, I walked to his room already void of his clothes, the only sweatshirt of his, and I sniffed it. I missed his scent, his touch, his smile, and his feelings. As the dust settled, I realized that I had a choice to make. I could try to repair my marriage, to rebuild the trust and love that I'd broken, or I could embrace my newfound freedom and see where my affair with Ryan would take me. Ryan already knew my plan to break up with him because when I turned down his proposal after my husband found out about us, I told him I needed a break. I didn't go to work so I could avoid him, and I even tried to change offices, but he always came for me. He knew the exact tricks to get me back on his bed, and I was beginning to hate him for that. So here I am reaching out to Reddit for advice. What should I do? Is there any way to salvage what's left of my marriage to Ethan? Is there any way to get Ethan to forgive me? I just want my old husband back. Update. Hello, Reddit. It's been a bit since my last post, and I've had many requests for an update. So, here I am. I want to respond to some of the comments and messages I received after my previous post. To begin with, I really don't appreciate the hurtful comments and messages in my inbox. They were sad, and I understand that my actions have dire repercussions. A lot of people said I was trying to narrate the story in a way that painted Ethan as the enemy, but they are wrong in that aspect. I'm not trying to paint my husband as the enemy or justify myself and my actions by painting myself in the light. I know that I made a mistake, and I take full responsibility for it. A lot of you suggested marriage and family therapy, and also sex therapy, and I appreciate those suggestions. It's something I've been considering, as I realize the need to work on myself and our marriage. Regarding the woman you all think might be his child, well, I'm not sure about that, and I'm not willing to jump to conclusions. I have tried getting across to his brother, who he said was his wife, and I'm yet to get any feedback from him. I sent apology texts to Ethan, but he read them without replying. Also, I followed some advice that said I should ask us to meet up and talk this out, but no reply yet. Some comments mention that cheating is a major defect in marriage, and while I understand that opinion, I want to say that every marriage is unique. Cheating was a mistake on my part, and I regret it deeply. However, I believe in forgiveness and second chances, especially if there's genuine love and commitment. I still believe Ethan will forgive me. We've been together for a very long time. I just hope that it's not too late for us both to be back together. Ultimately, I'm here seeking advice and guidance. I want to know if there's a way to rebuild trust and salvage what's left of our relationship. I'm aware that Ethan may not forgive me easily, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends and work towards a better future together. Also, I find it strange and cringe how some folks on social media jump to conclusions about me just from a few posts. They're calling me a monster, prostitute, or whatever names they called me without really knowing me or my story. They act like they've got it all figured out, saying I'll see things differently when Ethan leaves me. But marriages are way more complicated than that. You can't judge someone's life from a few online updates on posts. I have texted Ethan, and I'm hoping he replies. When he does, we will find the next course of action. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I feel it's important to keep you updated, so here's the latest information. Ethan finally texted back after I bombarded him with texts and calls, and I told him I needed to see him. He initially told me on the call that if it was about the divorce, I shouldn't bother stressing since he was totally opinionated on it. But I lied and told him it was a different matter. He didn't come home as I anticipated. He just told us to meet at a nearby street. When we met, I suggested marriage and family counseling, and he got furious for wasting his time and wanted to leave. But I knelt before him in public. To stop outsiders from probing, he agreed to go with me. We agreed that if therapy didn't help, we would then consider divorcing. Despite the challenges, I still want Ethan and want to salvage our marriage. I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't want my friends finding out about our issues, and my family has been wondering why Ethan hadn't shown up at their house like he used to. I don't want them to find out about my affair. We found a therapist with excellent reviews and booked our first session. I'll keep you posted on how it goes. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm back with another update. Despite the negativity I've faced here, like I have gotten lots of DMs and comments, I believe it's important to keep you all informed. Our first therapy session didn't go as I planned. Ethan had been keeping to himself a lot, and despite my efforts to engage him by asking us to go for walks or deep conversations, he still remained distant and reserved. Sometimes he didn't even allow me to talk to him as he just ignored me. We even had an argument during this time about what I wanted for him. He asked if I was trying to avoid divorcing him, and I didn't want to back down easily. I was hurt when he called me a cheater. Well, I was, but he wasn't a saint either. For our first session, we discussed various issues and challenges. I brought up Ethan's issue of not being truthful and sincere about our relationship. I also mentioned the fact that he might have a child outside our marriage, and he just laughed at my remark. However, the therapist pointed out that Ethan might have been right. Accusing someone you trust of cheating was a crucial start of marriage decline, and that was what must have happened when I accused him the first time. We went through a few more therapy sessions, and it became clear that things weren't improving as we had hoped. Ethan expressed his thoughts, and he told me that he had deeply considered our marriage but couldn't find it in himself to forgive me. He revealed how he had felt when he first discovered that I was cheating on him since he had never doubted my sincerity. He said the text he read from my lover on my phone had breached a gap in his heart, and he had to leave home for days to clear his head. He said when he came back home to finally settle things, I had the effrontery to bring my affair to his home. No. Ethan did admit that he did go out with his secretary briefly, but nothing happened between them. When I pointed out the used sex protection I found in his car, he just laughed and said he lent his car to a friend who took it out on a date. I don't even know what to do. I just want to believe his words. To be honest, I wanted this therapy session done with, and during our last session, Ethan finally hit the hammer on the head. He said nothing, and no one would make him change his mind. He mentioned that our first fight did a lot of damage to him emotionally. It proved the point that I never trusted him from the beginning. The woman I was seeing him with, even at the motel, was his brother's wife. She had brought him there to find her husband, who was cheating on her with another woman. He even said he knew I was there that day to get a room for my lover and didn't want to bring the issue up with me there that day. In all honesty, I didn't even know what to think. Was I the delusional one, or was I being gaslighted to think I was? I was now feeling desperate. I pleaded with Ethan to reconsider, to give our relationship a few more chances through therapy. I knew deep down that losing him would drastically change my life, and I wasn't sure how I would navigate through everything ahead without his presence and support. There was no hiding it. I needed Ethan back. I still love him, and if he is not there, I'm not sure I can be myself. As much as I pleaded and begged, Ethan remained stubborn in his decision to divorce. He expressed hurt, and he didn't need to explain much for me to understand that he needed to move forward with his life without me. In the following days, he came over to pack his belongings. I tried everything to stop him, from emotional appeals to physically attempting to restrain him, but I guess that only seemed to anger him further. What further propagated trouble was that Ryan was still texting me. I had sent him a breakup text and begged him not to get involved in my life. I even had to get transferred to one of our other branches. It was too late before I realized that I actually didn't like Ryan. All my actions were just to fill the void Ethan created within me. With frustration morphing into desperation, I reached out to his secretary. Apparently, she already knew the truth about us. The way she stared at me in disgust revealed that. Ethan would have told her the whole thing, but the feeling of shame was void at that moment. I proposed we meet at a coffee shop, and when I saw that she was all seated, I went on my knees and pleaded. Don't think I'm doing too much to get my husband back. If you were in my shoes, you would do everything you can to protect your marriage from falling apart. She helped me up and then asked me what I wanted from her, since I was already getting whispers from people who were present. I told her she should help me talk to Ethan since she was literally the closest person to him. Well, she hesitated, considering her relationship with him, but still did. I thought it would work, if not soften his hard heart, but he only seemed more infuriated and told my friends about me and my infidelity. I got to know because Cassie, my friend who preached her perfect marriage to me the most, came knocking on my office door the day after and told me. I was sure I was going to be the woman of the latest gist amongst our group. After trying everything, I reached out to Ethan directly, hoping he'd understand, but he accused me of trying to ruin his reputation and said any sympathy he had was gone. Feeling desperate, I even went to Ethan's workplace to talk, but he threatened to get a restraining order instead. It's crazy that after we've been together for so long, he's serious about ending things completely. Now, I'm totally down and unsure of what to do next. Friends turned against me, and I can't even involve our family. Ethan won't help, and I'm lost on what to do next. It's tough and uncertain, and I'm really struggling to figure it out. Any advice would be appreciated. Update. This is probably going to be my final update, but I want to express my gratitude to those who have acknowledged that I am just human and have followed my journey. Despite the challenges I've faced, I've learned so much about myself and the importance of resilience. Unfortunately, the negative comments and messages have taken a toll on me. I've almost fallen into depression because I felt criticized and judged. Some people have even gone so far as to call me crazy and delusional, saying I'm stuck in my own head. But I know that's not true. I'm just a person who's been through a tough time and is trying to navigate my way forward. I was hoping for understanding and support, but it seems like that's not going to happen. Instead, I felt like I'm being ostracized and judged. Even some people who I thought were friends have turned their backs on me. It's hard not to take it personally, but I'm trying to focus on my own healing and growth. One of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now is Ryan. I have gotten a restraining order on him since he wouldn't stop coming to me. Despite all of this, I want to thank those who have offered advice and support. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate your kindness. This journey has been tough, but I'm trying to stay positive and focus on my future. I just wish I hadn't messed things up with the love of my life.